everybody, and welcome to Powerful Stuff. I am your host, Meredith Baker, and I am here every week with you, come rain, come shine, come torrential winds, whatever it might be. We are here every week to process the last week, to see what's in store. I've been doing a few solo episodes, but don't you guys worry. I have some amazing guests right up my sleeve. And if there's someone you want to manifest for the Powerful Stuff podcast, you just get on Instagram, send me a little DM on That's Powerful Stuff or the Meredith Baker, and you just let me know. And sometimes manifestation can happen faster than we think. Okay, guys, this is going to be such a quick, such a short, but you guessed it, such a powerful episode. I don't know what it was this weekend, but I feel like I've been recovering from a flu or like headache or just something, when you're just like, I need to just like release, accept that I'm not getting as much work done as I wanted to. I feel like I've been taking on a lot of things recently, a lot of energy, and it was just kind of a weekend of cocooning, turning inward. What does Meredith need to recharge? And the funny thing about these weekends is there is also this dialogue that I find myself needing to have with my inner self as a recovering high achiever. And it's one that I oftentimes help my clients, my coaching clients have as well, of like, it's okay. You're not going to get to everything on your to-do list. What's one thing that if you could do it by the end of the weekend, that would feel really good? Let's just do that. And it's okay if you don't get to the other stuff. Let's just be in stillness. Let's just do nothing. And as you guys know, sometimes that is the hardest thing. And while this is a little micro lesson for powerful stuff, you might be sitting at the edge of your seat wondering, is this what Meredith's theme is today? What is she going to talk about? And while it's certainly part of it, what I wanted to talk about today is agreement number 1 of the 4 agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, which is being impeccable with our word. I find that this week, especially, I told you guys last week, but this week is the first week of the zodiac new year, the astrological new year. Tonight is the first full moon of the new year. What are we releasing? What are we ready to call in? Who are we ready to be in this next chapter? Especially as we look at this spring of planting the seeds, the fertile soil of this year to come. And being impeccable with our word, I feel like it was a big theme for me this week for myself personally, because I noticed with all of the ceremonializing things that I do and everything else, I noticed myself this week saying little things, like little junk food, if you will, little things that didn't go with what I really want. And as I've said in this podcast before and in life, is, what we focus on, we get more of. So if we have a lot of gratitude for stuff, we end up kind of sending our subconscious or the universe or whoever you want to call it a message of like more of this, hence the name of my experience company, more of that. And there's that famous expression as well where energy flows where attention goes, right? And so being really discerning on where our attention goes. And I view like any type of in Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The 4 Agreements, this first agreement being impeccable with our words. I know where to begin? I'm going to rewind it back to the 4 agreements and I'll say how it played out in my life, how you can look at your life through this lens and hopefully tidy up and supercharge the words that you're saying to reflect the reality that you're ready to call in. But yeah, Don Miguel Ruiz is saying like, be impeccable with our word. Like words cast magic, right? They are energy. And he had mentioned like in the Bible, it's like the first thing was like the word of God, like, and in so many of these religious texts, it's like the word is like, what comes in at the same time as reality. I'm probably like butchering what Don Miguel Ruiz said, but, the point is the TLDR, too long don't read, if you will, is that our words create our reality, and they send a message to ourselves, to our subconscious of what is and isn't possible, and like what we speak about to other people, even if they tolerate it or go along with it, right? That says a lot about ourselves. And that is like the energy that that person is going to leave the interaction with if we were spending the whole time gossiping about so-and-so, which I am guilty of having done in the past. Or if we spend that time being curious, like talking about our visions, talking about what we're excited about, talking about what we're grateful for, just having curious musings about life, chances are your energy and their energy are going to feel amazing at the end of the interaction. And so being impeccable with our word is like we have the power to create a beautiful reality, or we have the power to get more of like the things that we don't want. Like if we're gossiping about certain people, it's like, if we're doing that about them, how can we trust that people aren't doing that about us? Or if we're talking so much about how we're so annoyed that so-and-so doesn't invite us to things, meanwhile, we're not fully appreciating or savoring that person over here who does invite us to things, which I am so guilty of. And I talked about on my podcast last week of like doubling down, focusing on who is and what is instead of who isn't and what isn't. And so when I was reading it this morning, it really kind of hit me like a ton of bricks, because I have been having a few little kerfuffles with my husband lately of like, I feel like I had been kind of moving through this funk, moving through this energy, kind of the stagnation of winter, clearing it out, excited to make space for the spring, saying I'm ready to make space for the spring, and then still feeling the need to like share somewhat, I don't want to say negative, but like not wholly positive things with him, or keep regurgitating either old stories about myself or like a little trigger or frustration about someone else. And my husband, being my ultimate space holder, bless his soul, he's so amazing, is like, hey, I'm getting a little tired of these things, of you talking about these things and nothing changing, which is so fair, because it's like one thing if we're going to talk about it, but then it's like, if we are going to release it, then what is the action on the other side? And I'm usually very, very, very good about this. I'm like, for anyone listening, like I'm so good at this. Also power of affirmations and manifestations. But for whatever reason, I was kind of letting myself eat the junk food this last few weeks, if you know what I mean. Like, and by junk food, I mean, sometimes it can feel so good to just have that little gossip, or like someone else has information or you have information, you want to share it with them to like, connect with them, but it's not your information to share. And then you share it and you're like connected, but then you feel a little off or like out of integrity. I call it like eating the junk food of like, in the moment you really want those like, Lay's potato chips, and then you have the whole bag, and then it feels so good in the moment. And then afterward, you're like, I was eating really good, nourishing food up until now. And now I feel kind of gross and icky. So, or at least that's my interpretation of it. Cause I, kind of feel that way after I eat potato chips, like just if I have a lot of oils, in case you guys were wondering. But anyways, so that's the analogy of just like noticing that like ickiness, or like, why am I sharing this? Or why am I repeating this old story? Even like to rewind it back even further, sometimes like when I myself, as a coach, like would get a new coach, I would find myself repeating to them these old stories that I kind of already like had a grasp on and had worked through. And now it's just up to me to make the new action. And then I found myself rehashing it with them as if to send a signal to myself of like, I'm not ready to move on. I'm not ready to let go of this story, and then I spent 30 minutes talking to them about that instead of the vision that I'm excited to create. And so it's like, also it can be a sneaky form of self-sabotage. The words that we tell ourselves, they can help keep us small, right? They can help us say like, oh, I'm not ready to let go of this story, or this story is part of my identity, or it also sends a message internally and, subconsciously to others of, I am not enough. Like, I am not enough that I can just enter this room just as I am, and without having to share that hot piece of goss fresh off the press, and I can just exist and we can have fun in this moment. Anyways, so that's kind of what I was thinking about this week, because it is something I preach to myself, and I share with my clients. I never preach to my clients. But yeah, that, of like focusing on what we want more of, focusing on, what we want to attract, and using our words as that first spell, kind of like the song Alchemy I wrote with my friend Sarah. I believe before I see. I believe in alchemy. And, it's this idea of being so intentional and choosing words that feel good. And I want to also say that it's okay sometimes if you need a vent, if you need to let something out. We're all human, that doesn't go away. But how I remind myself the healthier way to do it is to vent in my journal, and to also separate myself from the story. So the story, kind of like what Brene Brown says, the story I'm telling myself is blank. Or, I noticed myself getting triggered by when so-and-so did this. Little Meredith found it annoying. Little Meredith found it da-da-da-da-da. And kind of sharing that story as that third party observer. And then after you get to the other side of the venting and really let it out, really let inner little Meredith or whoever speak, then it's finding that acknowledgement. And I know that that person's doing the best they can with what they have. And I know that that person is trying too. And I know that that person also wants to feel belonging. And here's what I'm going to do to redirect my energy. Or let's say someone didn't invite you to something and then you're just bitching about them and based on true events. It's okay, I understand, they have free choice to invite whoever they want. There's been times that I've invited people where other people were probably oh, I wish Meredith had invited me to that. And then I also am reminding myself, guys, this, as always, is just a talk therapy session between the loyal listeners and myself. So I hope this is as good for you as it is for me. But yeah, of redirecting that energy, right? Of redirecting the energy of so-and-so didn't invite me to focusing on the people who did invite me, or to, like I've said in previous episodes, being the catalyst. Okay, if I want to be invited to these things, I am someone who loves to create experiences, and thus I am someone who gets invited to experiences. So what experience am I excited to create, to invite? And so using those things that would have been triggers or poison that you could have latched onto and just made that a whole story and just sat in that story filth, you can rewrite it. How empowering, how refreshing. You know what I'm saying? And I needed a dose of that medicine this weekend for sure when my husband and I got in a little kerfuffle. Because it's hard when your partner, right? Your partner can be sometimes your biggest mirror. They see all sides of you, and he reflected back to me or held the mirror for okay, Meredith, you're indulging in these old stories a little too much. So what's your end goal here? And it was a good reminder of this sucks. And I'm feeling shame in this moment because it's something that I coach people on and that I, talk about on Powerful Stuff and other places. And I'm human, and being human is being compassionate with ourselves, throwing our hands up and saying, oops, I made a mistake. I'm not going to beat myself up for the mistake. Instead, I'm going to come back and ask myself, what do I need to forgive myself from this mistake? And how can I turn it into a positive lesson? How can I turn it into a wisdom? And so that's kind of what I did yesterday when my husband said that. It's you're right. I was doing these things, and I did a little breath work. This is kind of called, dealing with our own baggage. I did a little breath work. I screamed it out, because I'm not saying suppress your emotions, or if you just want to have a little vent session, that's fine. You're human. Vent into your pillow, vent into your journaling, to your therapist, or maybe you have one confidant, whether it's your partner or a friend, where you're hey, can I just set a timer for 10 minutes? And can we just have a vent about this? And on the other side, I'm going to find the gratitude. I'm going to find the positive takeaway. But having it in that intentional container so they don't just think you're dumping on them, number one. And number two, asking that person if they have capacity for that at this point in time. Hey, I'm in need of a vent. Is that something you have space for right now? And if they say no, respecting that boundary and taking it back to your journal or to your pillow or to your car screen or wherever it might be. But yeah, so yesterday my husband told me that I did my little breath work. I returned to gratitude for those things of like, okay, if this was something I was feeling annoyed or triggered about by this person, how do I want to return to gratitude for how this thing is showing up in other areas of my life in a positive way? What do I want to call into my life more? And how can I speak that out more? How can I redirect that? And other simple things too, that I found myself like, wow, I've been getting a little lazy with the way I've talked to myself. Also talking to myself, behind closed doors, or like when I'm on Instagram and I see like, we're all human, and I like do these tools with myself too. But, sometimes I, in a bubble on Instagram, like other coaches who I love and admire, I'll be like, oh my gosh, we're all in the same field. Like, why even bother? Because we're all kind of talking about the same stuff, doing the same things. And I find that little saboteur voice coming in, who's probably just afraid of me expanding or putting myself out there even more. But instead of letting that voice talk of like, why bother? It's oversaturated, being like, oh, how cool that I get to be surrounded in community by other inspired coaches. How cool that the whole world is waking up to this consciousness and that these tools are becoming more readily accessible. I love that I get to be surrounded by other people who are passionate about this stuff. And I love, similar to them in their own unique voice, I love that no one can say the same thing the way I can. No one has Meredith Baker's voice, just as no one has that other person's voice. And everyone's voice is going to resonate with different people at different times differently. And so it's like really being diligent with myself of like, kind of like, at the junk food analogy of like when you first start eating those green foods or like that really healthy food, it might like feel like an effort at first. Or when you first start going back to the gym, it might feel like an effort, but then you start catching that second wind. It starts to feel good. And you're like, wow, I'm feeling amazing. And I've redirected from that energy or those little low hanging fruits. And now I feel empowered. I feel empowered to sustain this momentum on my own. And so that's kind of the vibe I'm at, guys, in case no one asked, but where I'm at right now as I'm entering the new year, being really discerning, writing, keeping a list. What are all the old things, the old stories I was saying to myself? How do they distract or splinter from the life that I say I want to create? And what are the new things that I say to myself? How can I be impeccable with my word? Even when, I finish an experience, maybe there was some good and some bad stuff, but instead of, I don't want to say bad stuff, but, stuff that I'm learning from, or that maybe wasn't my favorite, but I'm sure there's a silver lining in there somewhere. Like, I noticed myself finishing this really big experience a few weeks ago, and people are asking me how it was. And I noticed myself starting with the cynical things about this big experience rather than like, oh my gosh, it was so amazing. I met so many awesome people and I'm taking X and Y and Z away from it, right? I started with the cynical stuff, which then kind of just puts it on a weird note. And it's like, those people don't care about all this, my cynical musings about a certain thing. Like I could choose to focus on all the great things that were great about it. And maybe those things would continue to manifest from that experience for me. So these are just little examples, but hashtag love and forgive myself for those. I'm just giving you guys examples. Okay. So let's tie it all in for what we can all do together. One big, happy, impeccably worded family. Let's tie it all back together. And let's do this meditation. So writing down that list of those things, all the things that you say to yourself or to others, or maybe things that you like to gossip about with certain friends, or even gossip about celebrities that you don't know. You know what I mean? It's like still not an amazing energy. It's like that joke or not. Oh my God, it's not a joke. Okay. That quote, guys, it's Sunday afternoon. We're finishing strong together. That quote that's like people, small minds talk about people, average minds talk about events, great minds discuss ideas. So Small minds discuss people. Average minds discuss events. Great minds discuss ideas. So it's like, what food do you need to feed your brain? What words do you need to feed your brain to be a great mind, to start believing before you see? And so after you look at the list of all the stuff that you're gossiping about, that you're talking to others about, that you're talking to yourself about, what is the more empowered thing that you could say in place of that? What is the thing that you could say in place of that that gets you closer to your dream reality? What is the thing that you could say in place of that that supercharges your conversation with gratitude for the things that are going right? How can you gently redirect your attention to the things that are going right? And again, not to beat yourself up if you have a little slip of the tongue when you're gossiping or whatever. It's just catching yourself, being like, hey, I noticed that I said I wasn't going to do this. It's okay. I had a little slip up. How am I feeling? Where can I redirect the conversation? Even if you find yourself making a slip up, you don't have to then spend 20 minutes beating yourself up or going down that rabbit hole. You can just gently redirect it. And I'll give you guys an example. So I was walking with a friend and she asked me about something. And I started to say something like about like this dynamic that was even beyond the information she requested. It was a personal dynamic in my life. And I stopped myself and I said, hey, actually me and this person, or this person and I, talked about how we would try to be really respectful of making sure that this dynamic doesn't happen again. And I noticed myself starting to share it with you. So I'm just going to lovingly cut myself off and like, thank you for holding space for that. And I actually like voiced it to her and I said it out loud. And she was like, wow, that's so cool. Like, thank you for sharing that with me. And my acknowledgement of redirecting my own thoughts brought us a moment of closeness and intimacy and opened up another portal of conversation around being better in our own dynamics versus had I just like gone on and shared this dynamic that I said I was going to do better about not sharing with other people. And so it's okay if you catch yourself doing it. Just redirect and be like, hey, it's actually something I'm working on. So thank you for holding space for that. And I'm going to lovingly redirect. And again, reminders not to just like swallow any like negative feeling you have. Get it out, write it out on paper, record yourself saying it like you're having a conversation with yourself, and then delete the recording. So it does feel kind of like a clearing in some ways, or setting that intentional vent time with a friend and then committing to find that silver lining or that reframe on the other side of that allotted time. Okay, let's do a little meditation. I hope that everyone's feeling clear and aligned, ready to be impeccable with your word. You are already being impeccable with your word. Closing your eyes, taking a deep breath in, and then open mouth exhale. Another deep breath in. And exhaling it out, feeling your breath fall down your shoulders like a waterfall, breathing in and exhale. And as you take this nice, slow, deep breath, just scanning your body, noticing how you feel in your hips, noticing how you feel in your stomach, in your solar plexus, noticing how you feel in your heart, noticing how you feel in your throat, noticing how you feel in your third eye, noticing how you feel at the crown of your head. Once you feel all of your energy centers aligned, just coming forth into your solar plexus, into your seat of yourself, your Manipura chakra, behind your navel center, and breathing in this bright golden light. One of my favorite yoga teachers, Leah, did a meditation intention in her yoga class this week on this chakra center. using the term I am golden. So imagine this golden light just pouring over all of your body, from your navel center down to your hips, up to the crown of your head. And as it's pouring this golden light over you, feeling like it's washing away any old stagnant stories that you would tell yourself, that you would tell others about what's possible for you, about what's possible for them. And feeling all of these stories as if they're like kind of like dust and dirt, just being washed to the ground by this golden light. Especially feeling them being washed away from your throat area, opening up your chest, opening up your throat, maybe even giving your throat a little massage with your hands as you keep your eyes closed. And as you look at them in the dirt, thanking them for showing up, knowing that these words that you spoke in the past, you were doing the best you could with what you had. And you now release them to the earth to become fuel, to become reminders, to bring you back to your center, to bring you back to alignment, and seeing them melt deeper and deeper into the soil, like they're becoming more and more distant in your mind's eye. All of these old words that you'd say about yourself or others, deeper and deeper, deeper into the soil until they finally disappear and you just feel the soil lift you, becoming stronger, helping bring everything into center line, your most highest self, yourself most full of integrity. And as you feel yourself most full of integrity, feeling that golden light really awaken from the inside out, your solar plexus, your heart, swirling up to your throat. And as you feel it, feeling yourself embodied in your highest self energy, your all-knowing self, whose every single word is a reminder of who you are and what you're meant to be doing here. And with this intense and deep and devoted focus, asking your highest self to speak out loud now the truth of who you are, the truth of the words you're ready to replace these old words with. You can say them internally in your head, or you'll have a few moments now to say them out loud, the words that you're ready to claim, sitting up taller, bringing a smile to your lips as you say them, saying them from your root out your mouth, almost like it's coming out of the crown of your head. Speaking truth from your core, from your navel, through your heart, out your mouth. Maybe it's words to do with your spirit, who you are. Maybe it's words to do with your health or your passions and what you're possible of creating, what you're able to create. And feeling these words empower you, enliven you, energize you, shooting out from the crown of your head to the tips of your toes, out your fingertips. And then feeling them start to ripple, to touch, to awaken others. Starting to say in your mind's eye positive things to others that maybe you've said harsh things about or to in the past. Blessing them now with your powerful, authentic, full of integrity words. Seeing these people receive your words, feeling it wash over them, creating a clean bond between you two. Elevating your connection to them, their connection to you. Empowering them to own their voice, to speak into their truth. Feeling it ripple back to you. And then we're going to take a big kind of like sigh, just opening our throat chakra, allowing this integration, this integrity to be pulled from all sides, calling all of this positive energy back to ourselves, breathing in and open mouth. Ah. One more time, breathing in and shouting out whatever you're ready to claim out loud or in your mind's eye. I speak the truth. I use my words for power. I am powerful. I trust in the goodness of everything around me, everything coming to me. And then when you're ready, just placing both hands on your heart, feeling the truth of these new words, feeling the old words have fallen away beneath your feet, converted to soil. Feeling this golden shimmer leave your lips with every breath. Thus, whenever you speak next, coating each word that comes out of your mouth in this beautiful golden light. Taking a deep breath in and exhale, opening your eyes, coming back into this space. Wow, guys. I don't know about you, but that felt so needed and just such a good reminder. As it was leaving my lips, I didn't even plan that meditation, but I'm like, yes, each word that leaves our mouth, like if we imagine coating it in gold, like that moment of intention before it leaves our lips, like imagine what more light and positivity and power we can speak into the world. So I'm going to take that with me as I am impeccable with my word today, knowing that I'm going to have a great week, knowing that whoever is meant to listen to this powerful stuff episode is going to hear it and get exactly what you need to. And thank you all for listening. So a reminder, the TLDR again with this week's episode is writing down all the things you're ready to turn into soil, all of the old stories you say about yourself, the things you gossip about, the things you talk about with others, burning it if you can, or flushing it down the toilet, and just noticing that ick of that stagnation leaving your body, but having compassion for that version of you who said those things, right? That version of you who was small or felt small and was scared. Knowing that those are released, telling your inner child they are safe to be loud, they are safe to use their voice, and then replacing it, writing out some of the things that you're ready to claim for your story, for yourself, the things that maybe if you have a habit of gossiping with a certain group of friends, what are some things that you're excited to talk about with them? What are some things you're excited to direct the conversation to? Okay, guys, let me know how this resonates. I'm excited to see you again next week. We have some powerful, powerful stuffs coming up. And as always, let me know how I can continue to serve you even more powerfully, because at the end of the day, that is what I'm doing this for. We're having these real-time conversations, in hopes that you feel more empowered and powerful in your own life. Okay, everybody. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next week for more powerful stuff. Thank you for listening to the Powerful Stuff podcast. We're your hosts, Meredith Baker
and Eileen Leguiu. We hope that you learned some powerful stuff that you can take away and implement into your own life.
And if you do, we would love it if you rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast, Powerful Stuff. And if something deeply resonates with you and you share it on social media, tag us. We would love to hear from you. And we will also see you next week for some more powerful stuff.